acknowledgement. The land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. And I forgot the roll call. Oh, okay,
Yeah,
roll
that's
call.
next. We're
You're
good.
going to do that?
McGillivray,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
Cameron,
Here.
Heller,
Here.
Swanson,
Here.
O'Brien,
Here.
Knapp,
Here.
Hershey.
Here.
I show Deturi and Treadwell absent.
Thank you. Hope everyone is doing well. We are here tonight for one topic, which is consideration of a public park to be located on city-owned property at 429 East Front Street through a public-private partnership. As you all know, but so the public knows, the reason that Sarah's here instead of our normal Planning Commission staff is they're all at a Planning Commission conference tonight. So we had a memorandum telling us that the reason we are considering this is because the Michigan Planning Enabling Act requires us to state whether or not we feel this public park is consistent or inconsistent with the master plan. That is the only issue before us tonight. So what I would love is to have a motion and a second, and then we can discuss it and then open it up for a public comment.
I'll make the motion to affirm the proposed public-private project by Joel Peterson to improve the city-owned property at 429 East Front Street for recreation purposes as presented at the May 20th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Be found to be, to be consistent with the city's master plan in terms of location, character, and extent.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, great. So this is the issue before us. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Jackie's first.
Thank you. I think we all received a note from the Baykeeper asking about how the plans for this align with our in-process riparian buffer project. So I would like to hear more about that if we can.
I'm just going to reiterate, the question before us is if this is consistent with the master plan. When it comes up to the city commission, I think that's when all those kinds of questions are going to be asked. We only have one question before us tonight.
So a riparian buffer isn't relevant to land use?
I'm not saying it's not relevant. I'm saying it's not the issue before us tonight, unfortunately. I know, what does everybody else think?
I mean, to play devil's advocate here and for conversation, a lot of our goals for the master plan are centered around housing. So I'll put that out there if anyone wants to talk about that, if this is a, supported use for our goals.
Also, not the issue before
Not
us
for it?
tonight. Yes, Mr. McGillivray.
So, and I understand your narrowing of it. I sent an email asking that same question, what are we voting on? Are we voting on the plan before us, which is what our motion states, that the proposed public-private project, that we're affirming that it's consistent. So we're stating the project is consistent. The motion is not stating
You're correct.
that a park at that location would be consistent with the master plan. And I don't know if this will come back to us. It was another question I asked the city planner. He did not respond to the email I sent him on Friday. I don't know why I didn't follow up.
To me, the memo indicates that the public-private partnership has to do with the park.
But that's not what the motion states. But besides that, I just had a couple of things I wanted to bring
Okay.
up. So one, as the memo points out, and I think it's somewhat embarrassing for us, because our commercial core does not mention parks, pocket parks, anything. We have a section that refers to, I think, arts, culture, and recreation, and then there's a paragraph defining what that is, and nowhere in that is parks or recreation mentioned again. So that I find was an oversight when we adopted this master plan. However, there are others to supplement, mentions parks, and there are other places in the master plan where the importance of parks is supported. But it also has, my other issue with this is that, those things talk about returning our natural areas and conserving them. Our commercial core does talk about not creating, taking into account the importance of stormwater retention, and this conceptual plan adds more hard surfaces. There's no definition about what type of hard surfaces there are. So I'm reluctant at this point without more information about the conceptual plan. And my question was, will the actual park design come back before us or not?
Yeah, I did speak with staff this morning to make sure that when I read it and what we heard 2 weeks ago, and they confirmed that the only thing that we are voting on tonight is whether a park is consistent or inconsistent with the master plan, because that's what the Zoning Enabling Act requires us to do. My assumption is when it goes up to City Commission, all these kinds of questions that you're asking, the City Commission will ask, and whether or not it comes back to us, I have no idea. But we are not voting on the project at all tonight. It's on whether a park is consistent with the master plan, and they said, yes, that's absolutely correct when I asked that question. It's in my text messages. I can show it to you if you want to see it, or I can read it to you, but that's what happened. Now, as far as you are correct, there is not a lot mentioned about parks, and since I was on the master plan committee, the reasoning was because the city has a Parks and Rec plan, and so it would refer back to the city to that plan, and Parks and Rec, a couple of weeks ago, voted in favor of this park. So that's why.
We have nothing about their discussions or why or how they found it. Is there anyone here from Parks tonight?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay.
We
I
didn't
would
ask for them to
support
be
this
here.
motion if you amended it to simply state that it's a motion to affirm a park, be located at the property of 429 East Front Street. But the word project, for me, I have problems. And I'm not saying I wouldn't support this as presented in the future. I'm just saying the project as proposed, don't have enough information to decide if it's consistent or inconsistent with the plan, the master plan.
What about anyone else? Any comments?
I guess for me, when I read like what's in the information shared, commercial core future land use district is planned to include the following uses: retail, entertainment, other commercial, office. Recreation to me says park, but that's just me. So
That's
No.
I understand where you're coming from though, Brian, I do, but I think when I think of recreation, I think of park, I think of river access, which is something that's highlighted in the Parks and Recs master plan, is access to the river, which, yes, does this project include that? No, but it could.
Right, and I can agree with the park. I'm just saying, I'm not sure I'm ready to approve this project. And it raises another question for us as a planning commission, and maybe it's, something we can discuss at a later date, is are we still reviewing, city construction projects to be consistent with the master plan? And I'm getting old, my memory's failing me. Did we review something like that last year? I don't recall it. But I don't know if we had any big projects that were on that magnitude. But in the past, we reviewed, but that we do it so early in the process, it's easy, I've seen projects come back that happened that I recall reviewing for the last time on the planning commission. That was 3 years ago. But usually we actually see engineering drawings, and this commission has requested changes that I thought made the project better, so. But that's another question
That's
for
a
another
question for
time.
the staff, yeah.
I apologize for that.
And I don't know if this makes anybody feel more or less comfortable, but if you look at the magazine portion, goal one, and that wasn't meant to be, the best goal or the highest goal, it just happens to be goal one. So steward and cherish our natural resources and green spaces. It includes the words park. And I don't know how many of you went and looked at this piece of land. I went over and looked at it, and what is in the memo. There's been people looking at the trees. A lot of the trees are dead and are dangerous, need to come down. It's not a beautiful site at the moment. And so turning it into a park with nice plantings and benches, to me, means we're cherishing our green spaces, which is number one. So at least to me, that says it's consistent. And that's the only question that is before us. Does anyone else have anything they want to say before I open it up for public comment? Nope. Would anybody like to make a public comment, please? Sir, you're the, are you the applicant? Yes. Okay, so we'll talk to you when everyone else has made their public.
Okay, Fred Bimber, 1223 Randolph Street, city resident. I think that the comments of Brian McGilvery here are spot on. If this board is just limiting itself to a determination of whether the location of a park in that spot is consistent with the master plan, have a motion and a vote that actually determines that. Don't make it sound like it's broader than it is and say, we approve this project because it's consistent with the master plan. If the only thing you're considering is whether it is or is not consistent with the master plan,
He's right.
do a motion like Mr. McGilvery suggested, and that will be what more clear about what you've actually determined.
Totally agree. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Richard Robbins, city resident, but here representing the Grand Traverse Safe Streets Alliance. And this is just an overall comment for this type of a project. We represent hundreds of households that are in Traverse City through our 8 alliances. And I'm here representing them today. We applaud public-private initiatives like this. Joel and his organization and his company have built some great properties in the city, and I see this as a really great public-private partnership opportunity for us. The concern the Alliance has is the lack of best practices planned for safe non-motorized transportation in downtown Traverse City, specifically on both State Street and Front Street. And the reason that's important for this specific project is there is no viable plan for downtown Traverse City for safe cycling or running currently. And we're not talking about putting a stripe next to parked cars. That is dangerous, and it's now considered non-best practices and not recommended for any cities at all, which we currently have. So there needs to be a change, and that change, we will be having some discussions with the DDA, with planning, the city, et cetera, about what is the plan. But the reason for being here today is whatever we do strike in a public-private partnership on this property, but on both sides of Front Street, both the property for the building and the park, is that we need to have a consideration for a future plan that has to be in place for multimodal, all-user usage for transportation. And we don't have that right now. I mean, we have a mobility plan, but it does, if that's what's been implemented for downtown, it is not best practices. And so in order for, in this project, we want to make sure we incorporate those going forward so that we don't get to the point where we do these types of projects and all of a sudden the infrastructure is not there and we have to rebuild it. So that's our position as the Alliance. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Would you like to come up, sir? Do we have questions for the applicant?
Questions?
Is there anything you would like to say to us?
Yeah, I would just say thank you for coming out when you guys weren't supposed to meet, and I appreciate that. So I know there was a little snafu at the last meeting on my end, so apologize for that. But I appreciate your consideration of this. I know your decision-making here is a narrow decision, you know, what you're trying to decide, but a little broader scope is we, you know, in looking at this piece of property across the street from this building we wanted to build, I just was saying to myself, hey, you know, what could we do to possibly improve this piece of property? My office is right there currently, just down the road, and I drive by it, you know, every day. And thinking to myself, and I did a little bit of research, and there's a lot of other cities around the country that do most of their downtown beautification with public-private partnerships. And so that's where I first came up with the idea, and I think it's a really kind of innovative one. And I know there's been some other discussions about different types of, you know, there's a big Rotary discussion. That's a different, you know, that's not a public-private, but a lot of public input. And I just think it's a win-win-win. You know, it's for the city, for the residents, you know, for the tax base to incorporate this. So when I approached the Parks Commission, I said, hey, this is a conceptual plan. And it's still a fairly conceptual plan. What they approved was, we're interested in pursuing this with, you know, my company, but ultimately it's Parks who will decide exactly what gets done there. I mean, as far as everything goes. And I said I'm totally open to it. I'm not trying to dictate what gets done on city property. I'm just saying, hey, it's going to benefit a lot of people if we can join together and work on this. So that's the spirit I've taken with this, and I think that's the spirit that it should be taken. It's all city decisions. It's like they were building this park, but there's just somebody other than the taxpayer paying for it. So that's what I would have to say. Do you have any further
Anybody have any
questions of me?
Thank you. Okay, back to us. I think I agree with you, Brian, that this needs to be amended and public-private park proposed by. How about that? Can I put forth some language and see if you like this? Motion to affirm the proposed public-private park. Then I had proposed, but it's proposed twice in the same sentence. We could be suggested by Joel Peterson, something like that, to improve. I just want to get the word park in here instead of project. So Shay, are you willing to amend?
I'm open to amendment, yeah.
Okay, so you need to make another motion to amend.
All right, so I'm just replacing project with park.
Motion to affirm the proposed park by, like it either has to be proposed by, suggested by, something like that, Joel Peterson.
Why don't we just state that a motion to affirm, I mean, the public-private question isn't really necessary. I mean, all we have to do is motion to affirm that a
Park use.
park to improve city-owned property at 429 East Front Street as into a park for recreation purposes, as presented in the May 6th.
20th. May 20th.
I think it's supposed to be May,
Yeah.
Today's date.
Yes.
It wasn't
Okay.
presented at May 6th.
Sarah's showing me a simplified version. Do you want to?
Let me throw something out there for you.
Yeah.
Motion to affirm a proposed park at the city-owned property at 429 East Front Street for recreation purposes as presented at the May 20th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting to be found to be consistent with the city's master plan in terms of location, character, and extent.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Are we good?
Okay, I got one more comment, just to
Okay.
throw it out there, just for future reference. Our master plan does call for public spaces to have an art installation. I'm just saying, but that's not what we're voting on today.
No.
But if you want to get a plaque or something noticing your dedication, maybe your picture, a portrait. I'd be in favor of
Public
it
art is,
as a thing.
public art in Traverse
Whatever.
City is always encouraged. Yeah. Okay. Great. We have a motion, a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. That is our only business tonight. Do we have any announcements? No. Is there closing public comment by anyone?
All of you to Grand Traverse Safe Streets Alliance is having our first event during Smart Commute Week. It's on June 3rd at the library. From 4:30 to 6, we have all the bike shops as well, bringing in the latest commuting technology, e-bikes, cargo bikes, standard bikes to display, as well as Traverse City Power and Light is going to talk about their e-rebates. So that's from 4:30 to 6. Love to all of you to come. And from 6 to 8, we have a panel discussion on what is the future of non-motorized infrastructure in Traverse City. We have a panel with the engineer, certified engineer that does this type of work, as well as the disabled, bicyclists, and runners on the panel. And we'll have 4 short videos and a public discussion to have discussion about how do we make that change in Traverse City. So I invite all you to join, and then sign up on gtsafestreets.org. It's a very cool website, and take a look at what we have. We have great visualizations and conceptualizations, not that we're telling people how to do things. What we're saying is, here's the art of the possible. And so anyway, hope that's helpful.
Thank you for the invite. We do have a planning commission meeting that night, but we might be able to come for a little bit. Okay. Any other comments for the public good? Then we are adjourned. Thanks for coming for this very short meeting.